All right, today we're diving into a financial crime story that just sounds, well, impossible. We're not talking about some sophisticated Mission Impossible style hack. Nope, this is about a single, devastating software bug and how it was used to make millions of dollars just poof, vanish. So let's follow the money.
Let's just let that number sink in for a second. $42 million. That's how much money disappeared from the global financial system over about 7 years. A truly staggering amount of cash that just went missing, right under everyone's noses.
And here's the part that's going to blow your mind. This wasn't the work of some shadowy cyber syndicate. The weapon of choice for this massive heist was something most of us have in our pocket right now, a totally ordinary debit card.
Which of course leads to the big question. How on earth could a simple piece of plastic, thanks to one little bug, drain $42 million from the system without anyone noticing for years? Well, let's break it down.
Okay, first things first, we need to understand what this glitch actually did. Forget about complex financial schemes. This bug created something much simpler. It was basically a cheat code for life that gave you a permanent 96% discount on almost anything you could buy.
So how did this magic discount actually work?
Well, it all comes down to a catastrophic error in how money was being counted, a flaw we can call the billion peso bug.
Okay, so the fancy technical term for what happened is a currency conversion anomaly. But here's what that actually means in plain English. The payment processor's software in Uruguay just got its math completely wrong. When someone with a foreign debit card bought something in US dollars, the system was supposed to convert that into Uruguayan pesos. Instead, it just swapped the currency symbol and kept the number the same. A huge mistake.
Let me put it this way. Imagine you go out and buy a pizza. It costs 27 bucks. You swipe your card, you go home, you eat the pizza. But later, when you check your bank account, you see you were only charged $1. That is exactly the kind of error we're talking about here, just on a much bigger scale.
So let's run the actual numbers, because this is where it gets wild. Let's say someone buys something for $1,500 US. Normally, the system should have converted that to about 40,500 Uruguayan pesos. But because of the bug, it only debited 1,500 pesos. And since the US dollar was worth about 27 times more than the peso, they effectively paid only $55 for a $1,500 item. That's a 96% discount every single time.
You know, a glitch this powerful, this profitable, it couldn't stay a secret forever. And pretty soon, a small group of people figured out they had a financial superpower, and what came next was basically a modern-day gold rush.
And trust me, they weren't just buying small things. They went big. We're talking luxury apartments. We're talking handfuls of Rolex watches, hundreds of brand new high-end cell phones at a time. They even bought massive amounts of bulk fuel for trucking companies, a water scooter, even fancy European travel packages. They were turning this digital mistake into real, physical assets as fast as they possibly could.
So who were these people? Well, the investigation eventually pointed to a core group. There was a Dutch citizen living in Uruguay, a Paraguayan customs official who was stationed there, and, get this, a high-ranking official from Paraguay's own central bank, the very kind of institution that's supposed to prevent this stuff.
Oh, but it gets even crazier. This central bank official allegedly turned the whole thing into a family business. His own daughters, one of whom was a Miss Paraguay contestant, were apparently traveling to Uruguay for the specific purpose of going on shopping sprees with cards that could trigger this glitch. You can't make this stuff up.
And this is how we know it wasn't just some happy accident. They knew exactly what they were doing. To get around the transaction limits on the debit cards, they used a tactic called desdoblamiento, or transaction splitting. If they wanted to buy something expensive, they'd just ask the cashier to ring it up as, say, 5 smaller purchases. This proves they understood the system's limits and were actively trying to get around them.
But this leads us to maybe the most mind-boggling part of this whole story. The fraud was huge, it was obvious, and it went on for years. So why did it take 7 years for anyone to notice a $42 million hole in their books?
Okay, so check out this timeline. The bug first appeared all the way back in 2008. For a few years, the losses were probably too small to set off any major alarms. But then, around 2012, the exploitation became industrialized. The losses just exploded. And yet, the discovery didn't happen until 2014. That's a 7-year gap of total institutional blindness.
And you want to know the truly insane part? The company that owned the software didn't even find the error themselves.
All of their internal fraud detection, their accounting, their controls, all of it completely missed the mark. The bug was only discovered because an external audit, one that was required by a North American stock exchange, finally flagged these huge unexplained losses.
Look, this wasn't just one person messing up. The whole system failed, from top to bottom. There was plenty of blame to go around. First Data, the payment processor where the bug actually lived, Mastercard, the network that's supposed to make sure its partners are up to snuff, the Central Bank of Uruguay for what reports called pretty lax oversight, and of course the Central Bank of Paraguay where a senior official was allegedly one of the main culprits.
So, once the secret was out, everything blew up. The case moved from the world of finance into the courts, and the investigation and the legal battle that came after would end up setting an incredibly important precedent for our digital world.
The people involved were charged with something called estafa continuada, which basically translates to continued fraud. Now, this is a very specific legal charge. It's not for someone who just stumbles on a mistake one time. It's for a crime that's committed systematically, repeatedly, and with very clear intent over a long period of time.
And the court's decision? It was a bombshell. It basically said that the systematic way they did things, all the transaction splitting, the immediate selling of goods, was undeniable proof that they had criminal intent. This set a huge legal precedent. Knowingly and repeatedly taking advantage of a software bug isn't just finding money. It's fraud. Period.
So at the end of the day, this whole incredible story, from a simple bug to a landmark conviction, leaves you with a pretty chilling thought, doesn't it? If a flaw this massive, this simple, could hide in a major financial system for 7 whole years, what other glitches are just sitting there, waiting to be found in the complex code that runs our entire world?